I wasn't going to talk about it because I've already talked about it. I did 2 videos back in February talking about this. And y'all know I get in my little moods, and I've been on one in a mood since November of 2024, feeling like I've put out so many warnings. I've talked about so many things, and I feel like I wasn't heard. So yeah, I wasn't going to talk about this again. But since changes have been made, let's talk about the SAVE Act. And talking about the changes that have been made to the SAVE Act is going to be fairly easy for me because one of the people that I follow over on Twitter has already done all of the work. I'm just bringing the information to you. Her name is Jenny Cohn. If you're not following her out there on Twitter, she is an excellent source of information. Give her a follow. She tweeted this. I don't know when she tweeted this. I just happened to be over on Twitter scrolling and it came across my timeline. So I saw it yesterday. And that's how I found out that changes were made to the SAVE Act. She tweeted, "Breaking. I read the new version of the Save America Act, so you don't have to. Here's my summary. Point 1 is new. It requires that all 50 states send their voter rolls to the Department of Homeland and Security to run through DHS's faulty Save Voter Purge program. Points 6 and 7 are new too. Tell your senators." So we've been watching how the DHS and Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, have been trying to get their grubby little fingers on voter roll information from the states. Remember, out in Minnesota, Pam Bondi sent a letter to the folks out in Minnesota saying that all of this trauma, all of this violence that is being bestowed upon you through ICE will stop if you send us your voter rolls, right? There are several other states that have refused to send their voter roll information to DHS and Pam Bondi, right? We know that the Department of Homeland Security and Tulsi Gabbard have infiltrated Fulton County's voter roll information. So we know that they're trying to get their grubby little fingers on voter information from the states. And so one of the new things added to the Save America Act is that it will force states within the United States to hand over that information. But let's go through all of the points that Jenny has brought to our attention. So here's the screenshot of her points, and it's a little blurry, so I've got it up over here on the big screen. So point 1 requires that all states submit their voter registration list to the DHS's Save Voter Purge program, which links to an SSA database compromised by DOJ per multiple sources, including the DOJ itself and a whistleblower complaint by SSA's Chief Data Officer, Charles Borges, and has error rates as high as 14%. And it's effective within 30 days of the SAVE Act's enactment. So once the SAVE Act is signed, it's already passed the House. It's now over in the Senate. Once it's signed by the Senate or okayed by the Senate and it's sent over to Donald Trump's desk and he signs it into law, states have 30 days to hand over their voter registration information, all of our information. And it's going to go through some process that was put together by DOJ, Elon Musk's DOJ. Number 2, imposes no penalty for erroneous voter purges, but subjects officials to citizen suits and potential prison time for registering a single voter without correct documentation, even if the voter is a citizen. Note that the GOP has wrongly purged thousands of voters in past elections. So officials can be criminally charged for registering a voter without the proper documentation, even if the person that's registering is a United States citizen. Yeah. So the people who work in the voter registration office, they go through the process of getting you registered to vote. And if it's found that that voter didn't provide the proper documentation for that registration to go through, the people working in that office can be criminally charged. That's how I'm reading it. Even though the person that's registering is a United States citizen. And we all know that thousands upon thousands of people have been erroneously purged from the voting rolls across these United States, specifically in Republican states. Yeah, have you checked your voter registration lately? Please make sure that you are still an active voter. That way you have time to correct any issues that need to be corrected before November 2026. Number 3, requires that everyone registering to vote or changing their registration or re-registering after a faulty voter purge or moving prove their citizenship in person with approved documentation such as a U.S. passport, which is expensive. So if you are re-registering for whatever reason, you were erroneously purged from the voting rolls, you're moving from one state to another, from one county to another, if you have been living outside of the states for whatever reason and you're coming back in the states and you're registering to vote, if you are a new voter registering to vote, if you don't provide the proper documentation, the approved documentation, which is, one of them is a U.S. passport, I believe a birth certificate may be another, but specifically a U.S. passport is for sure one of the approved documentation. Yeah, you're going to have some issues if you don't have a passport. If you're a first-time applicant, to get your passport, it's $130 plus a $35 application fee. To renew your passport, it's $130 plus a $35 application fee. And I believe it's $35, $50 if you have a passport that's expired and you want to bring it up to date. I could be wrong. Y'all double check. That's in addition to having to get the photographs or trying to get copies of your birth certificate. All of that are additional. There are additional charges associated with that. Yeah, and a lot of Americans in this current economy don't have an extra $165, $170 to do all that is necessary to get a passport to register to vote. Number 4, omits real IDs from the list of approved registration documentation unless the real ID indicates U.S. citizenship. Only 5 states issue this type of real ID. Or B, the real ID is presented with a certified birth certificate that matches the real ID, which won't work for up to 69 million women across the United States whose last names don't match their birth certificates. Let's see, I'm looking at my real ID, my Georgia driver's license, to see if it indicates that I am a U.S. citizen. And nowhere on here does it indicate that I am a United States citizen. Y'all are not going to believe this. I asked Alfred, which 5 states have driver's licenses that indicate that the holder is a United States citizen? Michigan, a purplish blue state. Minnesota, a blue state. New York, a blue state. Vermont, a blue state. Washington, a blue state. I ain't lying, y'all can look it up. Yep. Republicans are trying to suppress voters from the majority of Republican states. Let's keep going. Number 5, omits marriage certificates from the list of approved documents, creating an immediate barrier for the 69 million women in 4B above unless they can afford a passport. What she means by 4B above is, we're going to go back to number 4, the letter B. The real ID is presented with a certified birth certificate that matches the real ID. So not only are Republicans trying to suppress the vote of black people, they are trying to suppress the vote of 69 million married women across this country. In order to legally vote, you need to have a passport. In order to get that passport, you have to have your birth certificate. To complicate things further, if your birth certificate does not match your real ID, which it won't, because your real ID will have your married name on it and your birth certificate will have your birth name on it, you're going to have some issues. You're going to have some issues. And 53% of white women all across this country gave Republicans this power. Since Republicans have been in power, they have stripped professions from the Department of Education's website, which hinders white women from being able to receive financial assistance when going out for certain degrees, nursing specifically. That's what they've done to white women. And now they are trying to suppress the vote of white women. Let's keep going. Number 6 indicates that citizens with name changes, including the above referenced, the 69 million married women, can still register if their state comes up with an alternative process for them, subject to EAC guidelines. And in parentheses and highlighted, it says, unclear if states are required to do this, and gives no deadline for states to do it. So states can come up with an alternative, but I guarantee you that alternative is going to have to fall in line with what the Trump-Epstein administration is saying the guidelines and the rules are. But they give no further guidance and they give no deadline on when this alternative needs to be completed or done. And I guarantee you, Republicans aren't going to come up, Republican states aren't going to come up with any such alternative. Number 7, for citizens who still can't provide documentary proof of citizenship, requires that states establish an alternative process at some future unspecified date. Again, subject to EAC guidance involving affidavits signed by the voter and by the election official under penalty of perjury. And if the Trump-Epstein administration says, hey, no, this isn't a part of our guidelines, who took it upon themselves down there to say that this alternative is okay? We didn't give them permission that this alternative was okay. Arrest them. Arrest them immediately, because remember, back at the beginning, we talked about how if officials register someone to vote without the approved documentation, that person can be criminally held responsible. Y'all following me? Okay. Number 8, requires a valid photo ID to cast a ballot, such as a state-issued driver's license, a state-issued photo ID card, a passport, a military ID, or a tribal ID. I don't know about anybody else, but I know every time that I stepped up to the voting booth to cast my ballot, I've had to provide a photo ID. And my photo ID has always been my driver's license. I don't know if in the past or if you were able to provide, let's say, a work ID that has your photo on it to prove that this was you. I don't know if they would allow you to use a utility bill. I don't know about any other states, but in the state of Florida, in the state of Georgia, every time I stepped up to the voting booth to cast my vote, I had to show photo ID, and I used a driver's license. So it makes me wonder if in the past people were able to use other forms of ID to prove who they were. Well, no more. If you were able to do that in the past, once this passes, no more. You have to have a valid photo ID, which is a state-issued driver's license or a state-issued ID card or a passport or a military ID or a tribal ID. Those are the only forms of valid photo ID that will be accepted. Okay, and then she ends her notes with this. This is very blurry, so we're gonna do our best here. The act says that states can satisfy this requirement by abiding by the terms of their pre-existing memorandum of understanding with the DOJ if they have one. Per the Brennan Center, at least 10 states accounting for over 37 million voters, including Texas and Alaska, have abruptly signed confidential memorandums of understanding with the DOJ in connection handing over their full voter files. The memorandum of understanding says that the DOJ will analyze and, child, I can't read the rest of that. But yeah, it ain't good. Texas and Alaska have already handed over their voter files. Yeah. I'll put these up over on the community wall. Maybe you'll be able to read this one, but the resolution is way off and it's hard to read. Okay? But wait, Jenny has more information to provide us. Jenny has some conversations with Grok. Grok is Elon Musk's AI, and you can have conversations with Grok through Twitter regarding posts put out on Twitter. And so this is what Jenny says. Even Grok acknowledges that the so-called Save America Act, backed by Trump and Musk, may undermine the security of our elections by creating a single point of attack for voter roll maintenance via the SAVE program, which links to an SSA database, which was mishandled by Doge. Jenny asked Grok, would requiring that all states submit their voter rolls to the DHS's SAVE program, which links to a Social Security database compromised by Doge, create a single point of attack? Grok responded, yes. Centralizing state voter rolls in DHS's SAVE program, which accesses SSA data previously mishandled by Doge, as reported by DOJ, NPR, and congressional sources, could create a single point of attack. This risks broader exposure to breaches per analysis from Brennan Center and cybersecurity reports. Decentralized systems may mitigate such vulnerabilities. Jenny continues and asks Grok, does the latest version of the Save America Act require that all states submit their voter rolls to the DHS's SAVE program, which links to a Social Security database compromised by Doge? Grok responds and says, yes, the latest SAVE Act, which we just went through, requires states to submit voter rolls to DHS's SAVE program for citizenship verification. SAVE accesses SSA databases under Social Security Act provisions. Multiple sources, including DOJ and NPR, report SSA data was mishandled by, and of course there's some more, but y'all get the gist. Jenny asks one final question. Is it a key tenet of election security to avoid creating a centralized point of attack? Grok responds, yes. Avoiding centralized points of attack is a key tenet of election security. Experts like CISA recommended network segmentation and redundancy to limit the impact of breaches, reducing risks of widespread compromise. Sources like the Brennan Center also highlighting decentralizing vendor reliance for resilience. So even Elon Musk's Grok recognizes the issues with the SAVE Act and centralizing all of our voter registration information. But I gather that's why Donald Trump and the Epstein administration wants all of our information centralized. It makes it easier for them to do the nefarious things that they want to do come November 2026 and in 2028 and beyond. They want to ensure that they remain in power from this point forward. Now that's all I got regarding the SAVE Act. I hope we are all clear on what it is that they are trying to do. Don't let them gaslight you with that bullshit talking about why can't people get ID? It's not just about the ID. Like I said, I've always had to present ID to vote. Did I have to present ID to register to vote? I don't remember. I've been a registered voter for decades. I registered to vote my senior year of high school. So I've been a registered voter for decades. And truth be told, I'm not opposed to people having to show proof of ID in order to register to vote. I'm not opposed to people having to show proof of ID when they step up to the voting booth. I'm not opposed to that at all. But the types of hoops that the Republican Party wants to put people through. I mean, we all just pretty much got the new real ID, right? Now the real ID is not enough for Republicans. Now they want it to say that you are a U.S. citizen on the real ID. Y'all get my point? Driver's license should have been good enough. Your conceal and carry ID should have been good enough. I have a conceal and carry ID. It's got my picture on it. Right? My passport should be good enough. My birth certificate should be good enough. They want you to jump through hoops because they are trying to suppress as many voters as possible. And they are trying to suppress 69 million married women who vote in this country. So white women, they're not just coming after black people and people of color and trying to suppress our right to vote. They are coming after you too. That's all I got. Don't ask me to talk about the SAVE Act no more. Okay? All right.